today we're going to move on to the next topic. Let's talk about liquor and cocktails. Liquor means hard alcohol. So beer might be 5%, wine might be 10%. Liquor is often 30% or 40% or higher than that. Kind of scary. Well, if you're careful, it's not scary. So we're going to go through some of the basic kinds of liquor and how they're different. And then we'll talk about some cocktails, how people mix together, and how you could order like a very basic cocktail. So the most basic liquor is vodka. Vodka is this clear liquor. It doesn't really have much flavor, and it's made from potatoes. And this is a famous brand called Absolute. So vodka. This word, I believe, comes from Russian. Vodka. It almost sounds Russian right there. And this is really, it's good for cocktails, but you don't want to drink it by itself, usually, because it doesn't have a lot of flavor and it can just have a strong alcohol flavor. The next basic liquor is called rum. Rum. So it's an rum. And rum is made from sugarcane, which in Taiwan, you can get sugarcane juice. So that's 甘蔗汁, sugarcane juice. And what they do is they take sugarcane, this plant, and they change it into alcohol. And so rum, it's a lot sweeter than something like vodka. And it has a lot more flavor. You can tell because it's that brown color that it might have more interesting flavors than vodka. Vodka's okay, but rum has this nice natural, almost sweet flavor to it. Okay? Chen Yupei, she says, potato? How? Okay, well, how do they make liquor from potato? Well, you have to think about what is liquor. Where does alcohol come from? Alcohol is when you take some kind of sugar, it could be any kind of sugar, and then you feed it to yeast. That's a hard word to say. I should write it down for you. Yeast. Yeast is something that's alive, actually. I don't know how to say yeast in Chinese. Should we find out together? And let's see. This is the dictionary I like to use. It's called MDBG. So yeast. 酵母. Okay. 酵母菌. So that's yeast. Okay. I recommend using MDBG on your computer. I really like it. So the way that you make alcohol, any kind of alcohol, wine, beer, and liquor, is you take some kind of sugar and you feed it to yeast, this plant, or this living thing, and that living thing will make alcohol from the sugar. So we were talking about beer and wine. For beer, you use, what do you use? Oh, geez, my brain's not working. But for wine, you take grapes and the yeast will eat the grapes, and then the grapes will turn into alcohol. For vodka, you take potatoes, mash it up, put some yeast in it, then the the sugars in the potato will turn into alcohol. For rum, you start with sugar cane. Well, there's sugar in sugar cane, and that turns into alcohol. Okay? So that's kind of funny, right? You don't think, but potatoes, it's starch, but starch is a kind of sugar. Okay? You could actually make liquor from like spaghetti, I guess, if you really wanted to. But yeah, vodka's often made from potato. And so places that have lots of potatoes might have lots of vodka. Okay. Rum is made from sugarcane, so places with sugarcane might have lots of rum. Like in the South America, they make a lot of rum. Okay? Now, another common one is called gin. Gin. This is a soft G. Gin. So, and then the I is I. So like in. I go in the room. Gin. I know in Chinese it's called jin, but in English it's not I. It's not jinjiu. It's jin. I. So this is the I sound we don't have in Chinese, so you have to be careful. Now, gin, I'm not sure what it's made of. I don't know what it's originally made from, but the flavor comes from something called juniper. Juniper is a kind of plant like a pine tree. Pine tree is like well, you can see these little sharp leaves. That's what a pine tree has. It's a kind of tree. And so gin has this, it tastes like drinking a Christmas tree. Kind of a funny thing. But gin is one of the basics. The flavor is juniper, but I always say it tastes like a Christmas tree. It's an interesting drink. Okay? Duffy says, Chopin vodka is distilled 4 times and is known as one of the best potato vodka brands. Okay. I've never heard of Chopin vodka, but maybe it's pretty good. Absolute is really famous, but I don't think it's that good. There's one that's really famous called Grey Goose. Oh, that mosquito's back. Grey Goose is really famous and pretty expensive. But if you ask me, I'd say don't drink vodka. There's no flavor. They all taste the same or almost the same. Get something with flavor. Maybe rum, maybe gin, or maybe one of the next few. One that's really popular in the United States is whiskey. Now, whiskey can be made from a lot of different things. And it's made from different kinds of grains. Okay? Grains means it could be rye, barley, wheat, or corn. So all of the things that you would imagine can be used for making bread, you can use to make whiskey. Now, why is whiskey so common in America? Well, America has lots of grains. The middle of the US makes tons of wheat and rye and barley and corn. So use some of that to make whiskey, okay? Whiskey is usually a brown color, and some of that color comes from the grains. Some of the color comes from barrels. They put it in a barrel of wood to let it age over time, okay? Now, there are 2 main kinds of whiskey that you might hear about. One is called Scotch. Scotch is a kind of whiskey that comes from Scotland. Scotland is north of England. So England, Scotland is above it. And so Scotch gets its name from Scotland. Okay? And Scotch is a kind of whiskey that's very smoky. It tastes like there's smoke in the whiskey from the way it's made. I don't really like Scotch, but I know it's really popular here in Taiwan. Another kind of whiskey is called bourbon. Bourbon is very popular in the US. So it looks like Bauerbon, but say bourbon. Bourbon. Okay? Bourbon, how is this different than other whiskeys? Bourbon is usually a little bit sweeter than other whiskeys. Scotch is a little bit smoky. Bourbon is a little bit sweet. So I like bourbon. I think it's nice. And there are a lot of places in America that are famous for bourbon. Like there's a state called Kentucky. Well, you know KFC, right? Kentucky Fried Chicken. Kentucky has lots of bourbon. And yeah, so if you've never tried bourbon, it's pretty good. It's a little bit sweet. This one is a famous brand called Jack Daniel's. I think they're whiskeys, some of their whiskeys made with rye. Rye is a grain that you use to make bread. Okay? Okay. So whiskey is a popular one in the US, but you might hear someone say, oh, I really like bourbon. What they mean is that kind of whiskey. Okay. Another kind of liquor is called tequila. Like we said last week about wine, when you learn about food and drink and things from other countries, you need to learn other languages. So tequila comes from Spanish, I believe. Pretty sure. But you can see QU in English is usually QU. So it looks like tequila. But QUI in Spanish sounds like key. So it's tequila. Tequila. It's almost like KEE. Tequila. Now, tequila comes in many different colors based on how they make it. And tequila, you're probably familiar with tequila shots. And if you go to college or university in America, you'll probably have at least one tequila shot in your life, or maybe a lot. Tequila. So a lot of people think about tequila shots when they think about tequila. A tequila shot is you drink it fast, you bite a lime, and maybe you lick some salt. And they taste pretty good, but people go crazy and drink too much. Tequila is an interesting liquor. I really like the flavor. Some people don't like it. But a lot of people don't like it because they drank too many tequila shots and it made them sick. So if you sip it, maybe you'll like it. Drink it slowly. Tequila is an interesting one because it's made from a cactus. Like a 仙人掌, a cactus. And the kind of cactus is called agave. So agave cactus. And it's this giant plant. Like you can't tell with this picture, but it's huge, maybe 2 meters tall. And then on the middle of it is this thing. This is the center of the cactus. And what they do is they chop that and I think they cook it. And over time, the sugars in the cactus, they can turn it into tequila. And so it has this interesting flavor. I really like it. Some people might not like it. And the different colors are about how long they age it. If it's like a new tequila, it will be clear or white. If it's a little bit darker, maybe it's been aged for like 2 years. If it's really dark, maybe it's been aged for 5 or 10 years. Okay? So different ages. They put it in a barrel and let it sit for a long time. So I like tequila, but some people think it's too scary because they had too many tequila shots. But just sip it slowly. You might like the flavor. Also, this agave cactus. Sometimes they make sugar from these cactuses. So you might hear, if you go to a cafe in America, they might say, oh, we have agave syrup. So instead of just putting sugar in your coffee, they might pour agave syrup, which is like a sugar syrup, like a liquid sugar. And it has a little bit of the agave flavor, which is, I think, really nice. So kind of an interesting thing. It's the sugar from that cactus, they turn into tequila. Okay. Next up is, this is a word looks similar, but we say it different. We were just talking about liquor. Liquor means something that's 30% or more. This word is liqueur. So liquor, liqueur. So you want to say the second part stronger. There are a lot of letters, but just say it like it's C-U-R. Like it's C-U-R. Imagine that. Liqueur. So you want to say this part stronger, liqueur, while the other stuff is liquor. Now, liquor is really strong alcohol. Liqueur is weaker. Liquor might be 30, 40, 50%. A liqueur is probably maybe 15 or 20%. And all of these are different liqueurs. And these have a lot more flavor. And you can get some special flavors of liqueur. Jägermeister has like lots of spices in it, and it's almost like medicine. Kahlua tastes like coffee. Di Serono tastes like hazelnut, a kind of nut. And then let's skip ahead. Cointreau tastes kind of like orange. It's like an orange liqueur. And so these are things that people will use for cocktails to make something interesting and delicious. Kind of cool. So Jägermeister is popular for shots for like college students a lot. But these other ones are used for making cocktails. Give it some coffee flavor, some hazelnut flavor. Campari is, I think, from a kind of orange, but it's really bitter. Aperol, I'm not sure what it's made from, but it's kind of a nice floral drink, I think. Bailey's is called Irish cream. It's almost like cream or milk. Cointreau is orange, like I said. Okay, so let's look at some basic cocktails. I won't keep you too long. I'll try to go quick. Let's look at some really popular cocktails that people make, and maybe you might see on a menu. So a cocktail means a mixed drink. You can say both. The bartender will take liquor, liqueur, and maybe some other things and put them together. Okay? One is called a martini. This is the most classic cocktail. James Bond always drank martinis. You could get a martini with vodka and vermouth, or gin and vermouth. So we talked about vodka and gin. And then vermouth is a liqueur that's a little bit sweet. Okay? And so a martini is very simple, but kind of nice. The classic martini will be with gin, but maybe you don't like that Christmas tree flavor. Another classic cocktail that you see a lot in America is called a margarita. A margarita might be at a Mexican restaurant. And so it uses tequila. Tequila is that Mexican liquor. It uses Cointreau, which is an orange liqueur. And then you have simple syrup, which will give it some sweetness. There's sugar in there. And then lots of lime. So it's a little bit sweet, a little bit sour. If you've never had a margarita, get one. They're so good. Sometimes you can get a frozen margarita where it's like ice inside. And it's really nice on a summer day. Okay. Another classic cocktail is a Manhattan. This is like a gentleman might drink a Manhattan. So this has whiskey. So if you don't like whiskey, stay away. But I think whiskey's pretty good. Whiskey and vermouth, which is the same as a martini, which is a little bit sweet. Okay? And then something called bitters. Bitters is a strong thing, but you only put 1 drop or 2 drops. The bitters, it's kind of bitter, but lots of flavor. And it can make it taste nice. Then you use some orange to make it look nice. You could have a cherry to make it look nice too. But mostly whiskey, vermouth, and maybe some bitters for flavor. So Manhattan's pretty nice. Okay, next, a couple more. One more classic and then 2 that are popular these days. A Negroni is a classic cocktail. I think these are really good. You will probably hate it the first time you try it. The main thing is gin, but then it has 2 liqueurs. One is called Campari, one is called vermouth. Vermouth is the same as the other ones, like in the martini, in the Manhattan. Vermouth is that kind of sweet liqueur. Campari is super, super bitter. So if you try a Negroni, it's a little bit sweet, but really, really bitter. And so that sounds kind of scary. But the first sip, the first taste, you might go, oh my God, that's so bitter. But if you try a little bit more, you go, oh, actually, that's kind of nice. It's the kind of good bitter that we like from coffee and stuff. So try a Negroni sometime, but be ready. It's going to be bitter at first. One drink that's been super popular in America in the last 5 or 10 years is called a Moscow Mule or Moscow Mule. Moscow or Moscow is the biggest city in Russia. Okay? And a mule is kind of like it's an animal, like a donkey. I don't know why it has this name, but the Moscow Mule. Moscow, maybe because it has vodka. Vodka is very popular in Russia. Okay? A Moscow Mule, these were huge in America. Everyone wanted a Moscow Mule. It's vodka and ginger beer. Now, this is actually not beer. It's a kind of soda. It's kind of like how root beer doesn't have actually beer. Ginger beer is a drink, like a soda, made from ginger. So it would be like 姜气泡水 or something like that. Ginger beer. And so you have vodka, ginger beer, and then some lime juice. And then you have to have these special kinds of cups. I don't know why, but yeah. But ginger beer and vodka together with lime, delicious. One other cool drink that you might try someday is an espresso martini. We talked about a martini before. That's usually this really kind of simple cocktail with vodka or gin with vermouth. But kind of the shape looks like this, right? So a lot of drinks that look the same shape, you can call it a martini. So an espresso martini has some espresso coffee. Espresso means coffee that's really strong. Just the actual drink coffee, not alcohol. And then a martini glass, this kind of glass, and then vodka and coffee liqueur. This is called Kahlua. So it's a liqueur. It's about 20% alcohol, and it tastes like coffee. So you get this mix of real coffee, coffee liqueur, and some vodka in a drink. And it's pretty nice. And the Kahlua is not just coffee, it's a little bit sweet too. So it isn't super bitter or something. Okay. And so all of that, I think that's enough for liquor and cocktails. But that's kind of the basics of some liquor and cocktails that are, well, the liquor, these are the basics. Everyone should know these 5 things: vodka, rum, gin, whiskey, tequila. These are like the 5 basics. For liqueur, there are tons of liqueurs out there. I don't know a lot of them. Someone like a bartender will know a lot more than me, for sure. But liqueurs will add lots of interesting flavor. And then for these cocktails, you should know these basics. They won't explain them on a menu. Oh, we have martinis, we have margaritas, we have a Manhattan. And so you should know some of these basics. And then Negroni, maybe a little bit less common, but it's a classic. You can find one at most bars. And then in America, Moscow Mules and espresso martinis are popular. And they're kind of fun, interesting drinks. Okay, so let's end there for our talk about liquor and cocktails. Maybe you can use what you learned today to go out this weekend and meet up with your friends, impress them with, oh, I heard about this really good cocktail. I want to try it. Or if you see the menu, it's like, oh, they have a martini or they have a margarita. Mr. Kyle said margaritas are quite good. I should try one. So yeah, give you some ideas and help you understand the menu a little bit. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to help because I do this for you, not just for me. So thanks everyone. Happy weekend, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.